Hi, I'm Charles with AniCap. This is my recap for the 2023 anime called Undead Unlock. If you like my recaps, please consider subscribing. The story begins as we watch two different scenes. One scene is of a post-apocalyptic world where a couple goes their separate ways. The other scene is of a little girl waving goodbye as a plane is about to take off. In the romantic scene, the couple must find their way back to each other, but must quickly embrace as they prepare for impending doom. In the other scene, the little girl sees that it begins to snow, but is then mortified when the plane she was waving at catches fire and explodes right before her eyes. We are then introduced to Izumo, as she just finished reading a romantic comic, and she wishes that her youth would have been more like the story she just read. She sighs in relief as she has finally finished the manga, which means she can now end herself. Just then, a guy with muscles that could double as speed bumps calls out to her and points out how obviously dangerous it is for her to stand there. She explains to him that all she ever wanted was a shot at passionate romance like the one in her manga, but thanks to something wrong with her body, that'll never happen. This is why she has chosen to die. This super dramatic girl threatens the man to not mess with her, but he doesn't seem to take her seriously at all. She continues her threat by revealing that anyone that touches her will contract an incurable disease and die. The bulging behemoth of muscles just calmly listens, and she reiterates that she has nothing good to live for with a body like hers. The emotional pain she feels causes her to close her eyes, but the walking mountain of muscles strangely just walks right into the knife she was threatening him with. She has no clue what's going on as she wonders if she stabbed him, and the man grabs her head. It turns out that he has never heard of a deadly disease transmitted by touch, but he thinks it's cool. The psycho points out that dust have been getting pretty stale, and he excitedly waits to feel the poison. He says that he touched her and is excited as he wonders if the poison's going to hurt. She tells him that her unluck is coming, and the guy is shocked as the cement beneath his feet breaks and his body gets introduced to a speeding train. Izumo is completely beside herself as she apologizes to the stranger for doing it again. She condemns herself for dragging another person into her problem and blames herself for taking too long to end it all. However, she is shocked to hear the guy's voice again and even more startled when his head rolls over to her. This guy is way too excited for someone that was just decapitated, and he realizes that this disease stuff she said was just a front to protect others. Izumo then watches in utter disbelief as the guy propels his head forward with his blood and reconstructs his own body. The human blood rocket determines that it's his lucky day since he found someone like her, but she isn't listening to a word he is saying. She is still completely shocked and frantically calls him a zombie as she gives him a painful punch and runs away. This guy is quick on his feet as he manages to propel his entire body to capture her and explains that he is undead. He has some questions about the unluck thing she mentioned, but the cops are on their way. He tells her to hold on and takes off like a blood-fueled jet. He wonders if she was impressed with his leaping abilities and explains that he simply regenerated his torn off legs at high speeds and used the momentum to do it. Izumo completely ignores the regenerating psychopath and tries to get away. He just captures her again, but Izumo's quick to remind him that he's touching her, and he will trigger her unluck again. The guy won't be fooled though and correctly points out that he should be okay as long as he only touches her clothes. She just wants him to let her go, but he points out that it's a long way down, and all he wants is more information about her unluck. Izumo freaks out for a bit, but soon realizes that she was planning on dying that same day anyway. She claims that his threats won't scare her, so he has the brilliant idea to just spin her around at absurd speeds. Izumo can hardly stand the psychopath's torture, and she frantically agrees to tell him everything. Afterwards, her explanation starts 10 years ago when she was only 8 years old. Her parents were heading overseas on business and she was seeing them off. They said they'd be gone for a week, so they hugged her a whole bunch before they left. About half an hour later, their plane encountered unexpected engine trouble. All 270 people aboard, including her parents, died. It was then that she learned, although the degree of it varies, that people who touch her end up getting hurt. That's how she figured out that she caused what happened to her mom and dad. This is why she covers her bare skin from head to toe. She has a hard time speaking as this is a very personal thing she's telling this complete stranger, but he rudely interjects and hugs her. She wonders if he even listened to what she said, but he very much has. What he understood was that touching her brings out a stroke of unluck, and he has now decided to test it. She tells him that he needs to run while he still can, but it's too late and a fallen crate turns him into a banana pancake. Izumo takes this moment to get away from the flattened psychopath, but he quickly regenerates, unsatisfied with the results. Unfortunately for her, she slips on a banana peel and falls right off the building as the guy enjoys a snack. Izumo, in disbelief to be dying to a stray banana peel, the funniest sad way to die, points out that she never even had the chance to experience anything. As she falls, her precious manga leaves her pocket, and she begs and pleads that it not end this way. The ground is quickly approaching, so she breaks down as she finally realizes that she isn't ready. Just then, our hero appears to grab her and her book. He uses his strange ability to slow them down and tells Izumo that there's no way that he's letting her die. This is because he believes that he has finally found the power that will give him a real death. He reveals that he knows there's a rule she tried to hide from him earlier. He thinks that if he can figure out what that rule is, then he can make an even bigger stroke of unluck happen. His goal is to bring out the greatest stroke of unluck she has in her, in the hopes that he can finally end his ridiculously long life. He uses his admittedly gross power to fly again, and declares that it's time to head back to his hideout, and figure out her unluck ability. However, in the distance, we see that he is being watched. The suit explains to someone that the human blood dispenser is en route to his hideout with what they call the new breed, and he is instructed to apprehend her after confirming her ability. At his hideout, the undead guy just discovered that how long he touches her correlates with the size of her unluck. The next test he wants to do is surface area, so he instructs her to take off her clothes so he can cling to as wide an area as possible. That doesn't happen though, as she takes off running. She demands that he give up on his experiments, but he tells her that it's her fault for not just telling him how her unluck works. Unfortunately for her, she gets caught on a nail and loses her hat. Undead makes a quip about Rapunzel's hair, but she breaks down in tears. She can't believe that someone has seen her absurdly long hair, and explains that no one's able to cut it for her since any hairstylist would just end up dead. Undead, ever the problem solver, breaks out some scissors and starts cutting away. He points out that as long as he is touching her, no unlock will come his way, so he will just finish up giving her a fresh cut in the meantime. This is true, but she reminds him that once he lets go, all the built up unluck will hit him all at once. She fears how bad it will be, but he stops her and confidently explains that he is undead. Luckily for her, he was a stylist a long time ago, and he finishes up quickly. She is too hesitant to look, but once she does, she is glad. Izumo sees that he has let her go and thanks him. Undead, more excited than ever, points out that he held on to her for 15 minutes straight and expects that the next unlock should be a doozy. She has no clue what will happen, but we see that his head gets removed. It's the suit from earlier, and he thanks Izumo for getting Undead to let his guard down. Before he explains who they are, he states that they will have to contain Undead in a special capsule first. She wonders why they did that and is shocked to be handcuffed. She thought they were on her side, but they laugh at her for being so naive. They explain that their job is to police any unselected negators, such as herself, or any UMAs that throw the world into chaos. Just like myself, she has no clue what they are talking about, and the guy goes on to explain that her ability is extremely unique. They have determined that her ability negates the luck of whoever touches her and kills them, an ability perfectly suited for murder. However, touching her through cloth keeps one perfectly safe. He states that her ability's weakness is that once its conditions are known, it's easy to counter it with gloves. She realizes that they want to do something with her power, and they point out that obviously they want to use it for killing. He is sure that Undead wanted to use it for the same, since she would be quite the ferocious weapon if she bent to his will. Izumo finally speaks up and tells them that they are wrong. Even if they just met, Undead only used her unluck on himself so that only he could die. She proclaims that that new zombie friend of hers isn't anything like him, but the suit doesn't want to hear it. He warns her to watch her mouth since he doesn't mind disposing of her instead of capturing her. Izumo breaks down in tears because unlike everyone else, Undead touched her without an ounce of fear. She blames herself since this happened to him because he cut her hair, but she is grateful he did. She thanks Undead, and just then, the suit holding Undead is struck by lightning. The other suits wonder if it was her unluck, but determine that it wasn't because the requirements were not met. They assume it was a stroke of his own unluck, but she tells them that they are wrong, and that was no fluke. Just then, Izumo's elated to see that Undead has returned, and the human blood rocket is furious. The suit states that guns are ineffective against Undead, and they have to attack him all at once to cut him down. Furthermore, he may be undead, but he's an amateur when it comes to combat. Undead is insulted to hear this. He explains that he might seem like an amateur fighter now, but the past is a completely different story. Usually, he doesn't have enough space for so much information, so he puts a lid on his brain to keep 100 years worth of memories bottled up. Otherwise, he would lose his mind. With the thing removed from his brain, Undead regains all his knowledge of fighting and easily defeats the enemies. Undead just now realizes what happened. getting his noggin sliced off wasn't her unluck's doing. The unluck for the haircut was actually that lightning bolt. That was completely unexpected, and Undead determines that he needs to test for time lag in her ability. The suit realizes now that Undead isn't so simple, since the skills he cultivated through his very long life are also his weapons. The suit determines that he will have to implement a rather underhanded strategy, and threatens to kill Izumo if Undead doesn't hand over his own head without regenerating. Izumo thinks that's pointless, but the suit explains to her that Undead seems to value her quite a bit. Undead is super disappointed that the guy won't fight him since he thought it would be fun, and he shocks Izumo when he starts taking his head off. Izumo begins a dramatic speech about how she can't see any more people around her getting hurt, but Undead isn't listening and already chopped his head off. Undead states that he doesn't care a single bit about her emotions. He had fun all day and wants them to party up again if they somehow see each other again in the future. Undead hands over his head, which causes his body to be destroyed. As his head flies in the air, Izuma begins to think about how the truth is, she does know how to trigger the biggest stroke of unluck. She frees herself from the suit, but thinks about how her plan might not go so well. She leaps into the air to give Undead's head a kiss on the cheek, leaving the suit to wonder what she did. She tells him that it was nothing special. She just thought it would be nice to cast all worries aside and touch someone. She knows that her unluck is coming, and the suit has no clue what she is saying, but Undead seems to figure it out. He tells Izumo to get out of there as he regenerates, and tells the suit that he is done for. He explains that the moment the suit ran into the two of them, his luck ran out. Outside, the sky begins to light up, and Undead holds the suit as he looks up at the marvelous sight. It's a meteorite, and it completely destroys the entire building. Afterwards, Izumo worries about the zombie, but he would soon emerge from the smoke. His lighthearted attitude never changes as he happily states that he has never taken a meteorite to the face before. She's glad to see that he is alive, and he compliments her on her good luck. The two finally introduce themselves, but Undead doesn't have an actual name. Izuma decides to give him one and chooses Andy because he's Undead. He couldn't care less and is just amazed to see that a kiss caused all that destruction. Thanks for watching part 1. Subscribe and hit the notification bell for future parts.